All right, ladies and gentlemen, welcome to DAO Talk Weekly. We're back with some more DAO Talk interviews. This week we have, I think, our first returning guest on DAO Talk
Oh,
interviews,
wow.
Reza from many projects, but for this episode, he is from HAI. Reza, for people who aren't familiar with your work and who you are and what you're working on, give us a quick little intro on who you are and then why you're here and what you're here to talk about today.
Absolutely. My name's Reza. I've been working in the space for a while. Started off as a writer and then started transitioning into DAO work, working with DAOs, and I also do some work with Decrypt Media. But right now, my baby that I've been nurturing for a while is Let's Get High, which is a stablecoin protocol that was born from Reflexer, which is another stablecoin that I'm also the DAO lead of currently. And that's what I'm here to talk about, Tommy.
What is RAI for those who maybe are uninitiated, and what is HAI? I think people are probably listening like, oh, that's very similar in words. In fact, it is just one letter difference.
Yes, we're not very creative.
But for those who, it feels that way, but then like HAI is such a perfect, it's such a perfect name, and like Let's Get High, the handle on Twitter, and you guys' tagline is like just like the perfect like encapsulation. I feel like of your team's vibe and what you guys are trying to accomplish. So it's perfect.
Thank you. And
I would say it is creative.
And that means a lot coming from you because I have consistently told people that I think Tally's branding and creative direction is some of the best in the space. So I
appreciate it.
Almost brings a tear to my eye.
Yeah, dude. I'm looking at if you're not if you haven't seen it, go check out their website. It'll be linked in the show notes. It's incredible. We can really talk about that at the end, like what was the impetus behind like the elves for maybe people who aren't familiar with the DMT elves. But let's talk about.
Dive into
we'll get that at the end.
So
let's dive into
RAI.
RAI.
Or Reflexer Finance. It was born a while ago. I think it was towards the end of DeFi summer. But anyway, so RAI was basically started based on the original vision of DAI. So originally, DAI was the first version of DAI was called HAI. It had negative interest rates. It's backed by pure ETH. And then as the DAI team grew, things changed. They started backing it by stuff like USDC. And some people, including Amin Soleimani, who is one of the founders of Reflexer, looked at that and thought, I don't like it. I don't like that we're getting essentially, dollar coins to back crypto stable coins, and that seems like we're, repeating the sins of our fathers a little bit. And so, RAI was founded, and the idea was to create a decentralized, censorship-resistant stablecoin, because with these collateral-backed stablecoins like DAI, your coin is really only as strong as your collateral. Like you're only as strong as your weakest link or whatever. If one of those collaterals goes down or has some sort of problem, then all of a sudden, like your whole protocol is at risk. You gotta, protect it. So, RAI was created with the idea of like, let's only use pure ETH as collateral. Crypto stable coins should be backed by crypto, not by USDC, which is essentially just like a banknote or something now. But yeah, that's where RAI came from. Another core idea behind it was ungovernance, something we looked at in other DAOs and other like stablecoin protocols was another example of sort of repeating the sins of our fathers, the sins of our fathers being like the Federal Reserve in this example. Like the Federal Reserve gets together every so-and-so months and, a bunch of dudes just make some decisions that affect the entire world. They have data. They know which way things are going, but it's not just it's not that they just look at the data in front of them and say, okay, we need to do this. They look at the data in front of them, then they think, okay, how do people feel right now? Do we need to manipulate these people a little bit? What should we say? Long story short, we think that money would be better without humans involved. So with RAI, the idea was to ungovern the protocol, take out humans' ability to mess it up. What that meant was hard coding certain parameters of the protocol. One of those parameters being like what collateral you can add. So you can only mint RAI by depositing ETH, and that will never change. which ended up sort of being how HAI was born. So fast forward a few years after the creation of RAI. RAI has succeeded in my eyes at maintaining stability. There's a bunch of charts that we share every once in a while that compares the stability of RAI versus other major fiat currencies, and RAI is legitimately like the most stable one in the mix, which is really cool to see. I feel like it really proves the use case. So we know that the stability mechanism works. It's Lindy. We've seen it. But ETH 2.0 came around, and all of a sudden you can stake your ETH and get around 5%. And you can't use staked ETH as collateral in RAI, which makes RAI a little less attractive to the average DeFi user, because someone who's trying to squeeze the most out of their capital is going to want to stake it and then deposit it as collateral after it's been staked. So that way they're getting the 5% or whatever it is from the staked ETH, and then also able to take out a loan and whatever stablecoin they're minting. So Reflexer DAO was kind of thrown into a big conversation around this. What do we do? Do we need to reboot RAI? Do we shut it down, start it all over again, and add new collateral? And a large part of the community, and I think even Vitalik spoke up about this, but a large part of the community basically said, let's keep RAI pure. We don't, there is a place for something like RAI. Yes, it's not for everyone, but decentralization has a cost. And if things do blow up on mainnet, we are going to need something that is backed by pure ETH, that doesn't have all these attack vectors that some of these other stablecoins have. So we're like, okay, we'll leave RAI alone. RAI will remain pure and pristine, uncut ETH only, and we'll figure something else out. And the reason we wanted to figure something else out at all is because of what I mentioned before about how we kind of proved out the stability mechanism. Seeing over the course of years that RAI was able to maintain stability, even while by the way, like it's maintaining stability while like Silvergate, banks are collapsing. USDC is freezing shit. Like all kinds of crazy shit's happening, and RAI is just chilling. It's hanging out, it's doing fine. So at Reflexer DAO, we're like, now we know this works and we can't change RAI. The next step is to propagate this system. Let's take this system that we've seen works, that we know communities can use to create fair money that they can use to exchange with each other, and let's get it out there. Our first step in attempting that was going to ETH Denver. I think it was 2 years ago, maybe 1 year ago, and we put up a bounty saying, hey, everyone, we'll give you X amount of dollars if you fork RAI. And no one did it. So turns out the RAI code base is kind of complex. It was difficult to fork. So we decided, let's do it ourselves. Let's take the code base, let's clean it up, let's launch it on an L2, and let's get weird. And so that's exactly what we did, essentially.
So was that, how does Reflexer DAO play into HAI? Are you guys, what's the relationship between Reflexer DAO and HAI?
Reflexer DAO has incubated HAI. A lot of the people, or all of the people who are involved in HAI are also involved with Reflexer. The original team that founded Reflexer are advisors, and Amin, who was one of the founders of Reflexer, he's also incubated us through SpankChain. SpankChain is the only individual organization that has put up any capital for HAI to run with, and they've basically allowed this to happen. So it's been awesome.
I think for people who want to dive deeper into the mechanism behind HAI and RAI and the over collateralized depositioning of everything, we'll link the HAI docs and the RAI docs in the notes if you want to go deeper into that, because I feel like we could spend forever talking about it. But I do want to talk about HAI and HAI DAO. You mentioned the L2. I know which L2 you are launching on, but if you want to talk about why you chose that L2, and if there's any future for other L2s for HAI in the future. I just said future 7 times, but you get the question.
Yeah, so we're launching on Optimism because we really wanted to be able to say, let's get HAI on Optimism. All jokes aside, though, I think that the Optimism community and the values that they have are very aligned with the values that we have. I think I've brought this up before, but I used to think, I had I spoke to Frisian, and I was talking to Frisian about how I was concerned that the younger generation didn't care about what I care about. With what I care about being, decentralization and creating like durable stuff. And then this is at the time when Solana was really blowing up, and I was talking to Frisian saying, man, like I don't know if the kids care. Like, are these boomer values now? Do the kids not care anymore? And then I spoke to someone at Optimism who I think was in his like early 20s or something like that. And he was just all about like decentralization and like censorship resistance and like all this shit that like it really took me off guard. I actually told him on the call, one of the partnerships guy at Optimism, his name's Benji, awesome dude. And I was like, man, I can't explain to you how surprised I am to hear someone who looks as young as you sharing the same values that I have. This makes me really confident that we made the right decision going on Optimism. Beyond like the community side of it, I think there's a lot of room for growth in Optimism. I'm not making any predictions about the market, but I think a lot of people think that things are numbers starting to go up around here in general. I think that Optimism has a lot of room for growth, and there was sort of like a clear opportunity there to be a native decentralized stable. I think most of the stablecoin volume on Optimism right now is like USDC and stuff like that. So we saw a good opportunity to come in and just make some big waves, and also give people an opportunity to do something with their Optimism tokens. We'll allow OP tokens to be used as collateral to mint HAI from day one. So hoping to give people some stuff to do.
Hell yeah, dude. You guys you pretty much touched on like everything on your Twitter, which I love. Any questions anyone might have, like I'm looking at a thread on why Optimism right now. So kind of like just a note to listeners, like if you're listening and you want to dive in deeper at anything we talk about, I'll link all the threads below. Did you write these threads or is it someone else?
That was me.
Dude, they're killer.
Do they sound like
killer.
Me? Am I just
I don't know. They sound good, dude. Yeah. No, they sound good. Speaking on like I mean, this week is the week that, or I guess last week was when the announcement went out for HAI, and the airdrop is live right now. The claim's live right now. And there's a few proposals that are already live on Tally right now. Maybe like, you don't have to go like word by word into like the qualifications for like airdrop, but for someone who maybe is listening that doesn't know if they're eligible, or maybe they are eligible and they had no idea they're eligible. Like what are the qualifications to receive some of the HAI airdrop, and what should they do?
Yeah.
Once they know they're eligible.
So there were three main buckets of criteria for the airdrop. The first bucket was the Reflexer ecosystem. Excuse me. Reflexer ecosystem included stuff like providing liquidity for RAI, opening a RAI safe, minting RAI, staking FLX, which is a governance token for Reflexer, stuff like that. The second category was people who participated in the HAI testnet. That was kind of just blanketed. Pretty much every action that you could do on testnet would make you eligible. And then the final category was the Optimism ecosystem category. And our goal with that was to, one, get the attention of people who have staked ETH on Optimism, and two, to get the attention of people who are actively participating in governance. So for that, we gave it to people who had participated in at least one DAO vote with at least 50 OP. And the reason we put a limit on there was to just try and avoid, gaming, it getting gamed and stuff like that. And then the other ones in the Optimism ecosystem were stuff like, bridged X staked ETH, from mainnet to Optimism, or bridged Y staked ETH from mainnet to Optimism, and stuff like that. So if you're eligible and you claim your kite right now, you'll notice that it's non-transferable. So at the moment, all you can do with it is delegate it to yourself or delegate it to another person and participate in governance. To make it transferable, it will require a DAO vote. So here's basically the rundown of what needs to happen, in my opinion, for the DAO to go from where it is right now to a completely functioning protocol. So as of right now, we have 2 proposals up on Tally. The first one is to ratify the DAO charter. That's basically like a DAO's versions of articles of incorporation saying like, hey, we as the DAO all agreed to, follow these rules, be governed by these rules. The second one is to ratify the list of designated smart contracts. And that's the main point of that is creating a single source of truth for people to refer to. So that way, that this list of smart contracts is accurate. Like it's not changing. This is what it's going to be. Don't go search what is the Kite smart contract address on Twitter. Just go to this document. This is the single source of truth. After that, the 2 next steps are turning on Kite transferability and then raising the global debt ceiling to 0. So like what that means, raising the global debt ceiling from 0. And what that means is in order to launch the protocol but not have it be active in the way that we wanted to do it, we had to launch it. But to stop people from using it, we basically set the debt ceiling at 0, meaning that every type of collateral just couldn't be used until we turned that on. So those are the next steps. We turn on Kite transferability, increase debt ceiling, then we're good to go. Anyone can submit those proposals. So like, which is kind of weird. It's kind of crazy. Like we have a date, like I personally have a date in mind when I would like to turn on Kite transferability and when I would like the protocol to go live, but there's always a chance that someone just looks at it and is like, oh, I know how to turn this on, and they just submit a proposal. They also need enough Kite to reach to be able to submit a proposal,
Cool.
But
Yeah.
it's kind of cool that can happen. Cool and scary.
So what was the like, because I know, the like pessimists are going to want to know about it, but like in terms of like token allocation for the team that's launching it, what did that look like? Like how much control do the people who launched, like you said, you launched it, but like didn't really launch it in the sense that it's like a fully functioning protocol yet. How much control do you guys have?
Between me and the 2 other people who have like really been grinding on this, I think we've got around like 9% of the total supply or something like that. The biggest allocation, I think, was to the DAO treasury. That is around 40%, I believe. We just added to it. So that's why I'm unsure of the exact numbers, as we just changed it a little bit.
I'm looking it up right now on Tally, 517 holders, 217 voters, which is good. So 217 delegations.
Nice.
It's looking good so far.
Yeah, something kind of funny that's been happening is that people keep delegating they keep delegating to us. And I keep going in the Discord and saying, please stop delegating to us. Like, we do not need more voting power. The whole point of this was to get a diversity of opinions. So that like everyone has a voice in this, but like they're coming in and like one of the guys we've been working with is like the #1 delegate, and the description, his like delegate description is there is probably someone better to delegate to, but for some reason everyone's delegating to
Kingfish.
him.
Yeah. He's the #1 delegate by like 5,000 Kite.
Yeah,
I love it.
It's so hilarious. It's like that. I'm gonna butcher this, but there's some quote somewhere about how like the best kind of leaders are the people who don't want to be leaders. And I guess Kingfish has he's internalized that.
Yeah. I mean, it's kind of like a second order issue. Like we always think about like, okay, how do we increase just the pure amounts of delegation? And I guess like a second order effect of that is, okay, well now how do we make sure delegation is going to like a diverse, amount of people so that you have like a healthily functioning DAO.
Yeah. One thing we are doing
to
that end is if you are a delegate, if you want to be a delegate, please stop by the Discord, post the information about it, and also post it on Twitter. Make sure to tag us. We're retweeting like everything. Every delegate profile we see is getting retweeted. And there have been a lot of really cool delegates we've seen coming through. So I'm genuinely excited to see some of the discourse that happens when we start, making serious decisions.
Dude, I'm excited about it, dude. I love the design of the DAO. Speak a little bit on governance. So we talked about it a good amount on the show, like from our weekly episodes and some interviews we had with some other people on governance. But how big of a role is ungovernance going to play in HAI? I know like you kind of guys went too far, or you went too far down that like spectrum with RAI to the point where like nothing can change. How are you viewing that for HAI, and like what are the best parts of it you want to take from? What are you trying to avoid, and how do you see that playing out over the next couple months as you guys start to get off the ground?
Yeah, so I'll preface this by saying that this is just my opinion, and anything could happen. Like I could be outvoted on a lot of this stuff. But it is my opinion that I think that HAI should ungovern itself, but a lot more slowly than RAI did. And I think that we'll probably keep certain things, or I would like to keep certain things controlled by governance. I mean, like obviously, after seeing what happened with RAI and how much of a pain it can be to not be able to add or remove collateral types, I don't see myself ever voting to lock up collateral types. I think I personally want to keep that loose. I could see the PID controller eventually being ungoverned, but that's something that we're still ungoverned. That's one of the only things left at RAI that we're still ungoverning, because tuning that is it's a long-term process. Like we've got the PI controller. I won't go too in depth on it here. You can learn more about. There's a bunch of stuff on it, the reflexor socials and HAI socials, but it's basically the stability mechanism, and it's kind of like the knob on your shower that you use to control the temperature. Like when you get in the shower, chances are you turn it on and you're like, put your hand in the water, you're like, oh, it's a little too hot. Turn it down, oh, it's a little too cold. Then you might find something just right. You're tuning the temperature to figure out what temperature you want to get it at. And that's kind of similar to how the PI controller works. We set the parameters, we say how hot we want it to run, how cold we want it to run, and then we see like what the temperature is, like how stable is this? And then sometimes it gets a little too hot, sometimes it gets a little too cold, and we have to go in and change the parameters to try and make it a little more smooth it out. So I think we'll probably leave the controller ungoverned until we're happy with it, until we feel like it's perfect, which might never happen. It could be that we never feel like it's truly perfect and it's something we're constantly tuning and trying to improve upon, but we'll find out.
Yeah, and if someone wants to take that head on, like you said, like anyone who has tokens or has has reached like the threshold to submit a proposal can submit something to achieve that, right?
Yeah. I mean, please do not try to tune the PI controller if you have not studied control theory. It's like I do not touch. Yeah. Whenever those kind of votes happen, I defer judgment to Amin. I think one of my talents is being very aware of when I don't know enough to have an opinion on something. And I don't feel like I'm educated enough about control theory to have an opinion on the variables used in the PID controller. We have some extremely smart people like Amin and Bert Kellerman, who's one of the guys from the original Reflexor team that helped set up the PI controller in the first place, who are very educated on it and have spent so much time thinking about this and watching it. So when those kind of things go up for vote, I really just defer judgment to the people who are smarter than me. But if you genuinely feel like you're a control theory expert, you know how PI controllers work, and you think that you can make a difference on improving it, like please submit a proposal. That would be awesome.
Yeah, absolutely. Just more saying it like anyone can really get involved if they want to.
Anyone can fuck it up.
Anyone can fuck. I also can be said that anyone can fuck it up. I kind of you've been hitting on this whole interview, and kind of something I love about it. We talked about the elves in the beginning at the branding, and you talked about how you're constantly retweeting like delegation and people trying to get involved. And I think you guys, in my opinion, out of all the DAOs that I see, have the best branding and like marketing strategy, and have the best visual identity, which I think goes hand in hand with getting people active in the DAO, and making people feel enabled. But at the same time, understanding like, hey, when it's time for more technical stuff, I know who to go to, I know who to defer to. And that's kind of the beauty of delegation and the team you have. So I want to talk a little bit about the impetus behind, kind of towards the end of the episode, of the elves, and what exactly led to that creative choice. if you're listening to this and you haven't seen it, just go to letsgethai.com, and it's spelled high, HAI. Yeah, I wanted to hear your thoughts on it all, and I've seen on Twitter people love the elves. So. Yeah.
There's only been 2 people who were scared of the elves, which was my only concern with the branding was like, I hope people don't. So the elves that you see are V2 of the elves. The first version was
scary.
It was it was less realistic, which made it, in my opinion, a little less scary. Like they were more just like outlines of figurines. So I was a little concerned that people were going to see this and be like, oh, like what are those? But I only had 2 people comment about it. One of them was Joseph from Open Dollar. He was like, man, these are scary. But yeah, I can talk about the branding a little bit. So as you might have picked up on from us talking about Reflexer during this conversation, Reflexer is a complex system and it's highly technical. And I thought that was one of the things that was a hurdle for RAI in getting more adoption. I thought that it was, because it's a complex system and it takes a while to really wrap your head around it, and the branding was also pretty serious, I thought that it was a little intimidating for the average crypto user. And so the idea was, what if we take this complex technical system and we wrap it up in memes and really playful, creative branding, with the hopes that, you know, the memes and the community drive people in, and by the time they realize how complex the system is, they're already hooked on the culture, you know, and they're like, oh, this is so much fun, I'm going to stay here and learn more about it. So that's pretty much what we did. We had the name HAI before we had anything else. Like the name HAI was born from like, Amin and I just going back and forth and kind of saying like, wouldn't it be funny if we started a fork of RAI called HAI, and then we could just say, you know, like the memes would make themselves. We could say, let's get high on optimism when we added OP as collateral, or let's get high on LSD when we add, you know, other LSDs and stuff like that. And like, the memes are just too good. So, yeah, we were like, let's make this meme more casual version of it and see what the people think. And I think it's done pretty well so far. Another part of it that this I attribute to so we've been working with this group called Number Group, and they did all of the front end. They did all the branding, creative direction, all that fun stuff. And one of their core tenets for like how they do business that like I really love, and I am stealing this and running with it forever, is they say we like to take things too far, because taking things too far is usually different and it gets the attention of a lot of people. So instead of like going out and paying a bunch of, you know, like sketchy influencers to try and get retweets and stuff like that, we were just like, let's just make the weirdest shit we can and just push it out there, and hopefully it's weird enough that when people see it, they're going to be like, oh, I haven't seen something like this, I'm going to share it. And I think we've succeeded in that sense. We made some really weird stuff, and I think people are vibing with it.
That's such a good, yeah, I love that, taking it a little bit too far. I'm literally like, as you're talking, just being mesmerized by a spinning tie-dye circle that's on the website. It's amazing.
Yeah, man, we're taking everything too far. We had this is a leak. This is the first person I've told this outside of, you know, Number Group and stuff. But we have like physical elves made,
bro. No
yeah,
way.
like hand crocheted elves.
What are you gonna do with those? I want one.
We're bringing them to Denver. We don't know what we're gonna do with them yet.
I'll fucking buy one for me, dude. I need that thing staring at me.
The only problem with them being handmade is that like the woman we found who makes them does not have a very high capacity for producing them. So we're not bringing a lot.
You only got a few. Yeah.
So
I mean, they're pretty intricate. Just like looking at them, they're pretty sweet. Yeah.
So we're bringing some, but we got to figure out how we're distributing these. The merch also is going to be awesome. I'm really happy with the merch.
I'm excited, man. I love seeing DAOs get a little crazy with things. You talked about optimism, and I love all the big DAOs that we work with on Tally, but from like a branding perspective, optimism kind of kills the game in regards to like branding and brand activation and kind of going the extra mile with like making it cool. And I think it goes hand in hand with having like Benji and some younger group running that show over there. So I love to see it. The collaboration seems perfect, and I'm excited to see like what you guys do going forward with other chains, if you ever expand to other chains, and what you guys do with merch and branding. And it's been really refreshing to see like the stuff from you guys, but also the way the community is kind of latched onto it. And I think it goes hand in hand with, like you said, number group. So I think let's take it a little bit too far because it's going to make people pay attention. And I think unintentionally, like you said, you heard it from them, but I think that's what y'all were doing and you have been doing with Rye and HAI, is taking it a little bit too far, taking it too far. And I think it's good. I think it's it's like the perfect, execution mixed with a little bit of craziness that kind of, stands out and oversaturated.
Yeah. You know what that reminded me of was when when Tally did, there was some you guys hosted a panel, like an online series of panels about DAOs or governance. I can't remember what exactly it was. And this was way before HAI, but we sent Fabio to do it. Yeah. And one of the first things he said was like, "We can stay autistic longer than you can stay retarded." Yeah, dude,
I know. I remember you private messaged me and I'm like, "Oh my god, I'm sorry." I'm like, "Dude, no, this is great. This is perfect because it's making people pay attention."
Yeah, taking things too far I guess has been a part of the mantra for a while.
I love it, dude. I love it, man. Well, sweet, dude. I'm excited to see how this goes. The next couple weeks, and these next couple weeks are pretty big weeks for y'all and for Tally. If people want to find you, where can they find you, and where should they look for information from HAI, Reza and HAI? Give me both shout outs.
Yeah, so I am at Reza Joffrey, Jaffery on Twitter. Just at Reza on Farcaster. Pretty sick handle. Pretty proud of it. Let's Get HAI is Let's Get HAI, HAI spelled HAI on Twitter, and the website is the same, letsgethai.com. You can also find our DAO on Tally, and our Discord is linked on our Twitter. Would love for you to jump in there and tell us about yourself and how you plan to be one of the most badass delegates that the DAOverse has ever seen.
Hell yeah. Well, if you're listening still, thanks for listening, guys. We'll link everything in the show notes below, everything Reza mentioned. If you want to dive deeper into the mechanism of how HAI works from a technical perspective, a smart contract perspective, and just from, a DAO structure perspective, they got everything on their site. We'll be putting out some stuff from Tally's site as well, like on our mirror and whatnot. But yeah, thanks again for joining, Reza. First ever 2-time guest on DAO Talk. And Let's Get HAI, baby.
Returning champion. Let's Get HAI.